my my studio screen just froze up for about 15 seconds, and my Instagram audience was watching, probably wondering what was going on. I'm looking at the screen. I don't know why it does that. We'll have to figure that out, but that does happen from time to time. Maybe it's because I've got a lot of data on my computer. But that aside, first thing out of the box, did you hear about this Chilean kayaker swallowed by a humpback whale? And of course, I'm not going to spend any time talking about that except to say, so when the Bible says that Jonas was swallowed by, of course, the Bible says a big fish, but we assume it was a whale. We know technically a whale is not a fish. Technically a whale is a mammal. They do not breathe underwater. They hold their breath underwater. But that aside, it can happen. And it just did. Now, I don't know whether at any time in history we have ever heard, and I'm talking about in modern history where we have media and we're aware of things. There may be some old stories other than Jonas and the whale. But certainly any time since we've had the media that we've heard about anybody being swallowed by a whale, the guy says he thought he was dead. He thought he was done. And then suddenly, after a few seconds, the whale spits it out. And he basically, he's uninjured, unharmed. So, you think about it, a whale swallows you. A whale it gobbles you up in its mouth, and you're unharmed. That's a big whale. That whale's got a big mouth that, you aren't crushed, you aren't hurt. And he has a son. I guess he and his son were out there doing something and made it back. This is off Patagonia in Chile, and they made it back to shore just fine. Apparently, those waters down there are very, very cold. I guess you're getting close to the South Pole, and it's cold. And he was saying he thought, he might suffer from hypothermia because he went into the water, obviously got soaking wet, and the water down there could be 39 degrees. And of course, you're not going to last long in water at that temperature. But again, just interesting little thing. The Word of God is true from the first verse of Genesis to the last verse of Revelation. And if there's anything about it that anybody thinks is not true or doesn't match up or doesn't work, the problem is you. It's not the Word. It is the inerrant, infallible, completely and totally accurate Word of the living God. I'll leave it at that for the moment, okay? So you know where I stand. Well, let's see. Where do we begin? You know what? First of all, you all pray for Virginia, because these crazy gun-grabbing bills that these Democrats have come up with have now hit the governor's desk. And I have not heard anything as to what the governor is going to do. But I would say if you're a Virginian watching me right now, please call the governor's office and ask him to veto these gun-grabbing bills. I mentioned the one where they wanted you to have some kind of lock box or something for your car. If you leave a gun in the car, it can't simply be in the glove box. It can't be in the armrest box. There's a little armrest thing on some cars, at least, where you can open up the top and put it in there. It can't be in anything like that. It's got to be in some kind of lockbox, like when you travel on airlines, where you got to have two locks, and it's got to, you got to separate the ammo from it, and you got to take the magazine out of the pistol. I don't think you actually have to separate the ammo, but the magazine cannot be in the firearm, and so they've got all these rules, and and I don't have a problem with the rules. You not being able to take a firearm onto an airplane, a contained space like that, and you get somebody who maybe legally has a firearm but's got an issue, whatever, and something goes wrong, you can't pull over and say, hey, everybody get out. So I don't have a problem with that. But driving around in your car, I mean, as people have pointed out, if your car is locked and the gun is not where it can be seen, isn't it already in a concealed, locked space? But apparently they're adding another one. This legislation also requires a 5-day waiting period before you can purchase a firearm. So now, of course, I walk into a gun store, I want to purchase a firearm. There's an instantaneous application, which sometimes you get back right away, but I mean, in my case at least, most of the time I have to wait an hour or two before I get the approval back through the state, which I guess checks with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and they do some kind of quick background check. But it's usually, within an hour or two. And sometimes I'll go to a place, I'll purchase a firearm, paid for it, and started the check, and then I'll leave and come back. Sometimes same day, sometimes later that day, sometimes the next day, and they'll take your number and call you, say, hey, you've been approved, it's ready to go. They want to impose a 5-day waiting period. So basically, you go in, you purchase a firearm, I guess you get approval, but you got to wait 5 days before you can come back and pick it up. I guess that's the way it'll go. That's just one. They want an assault weapons ban. Now again, every weapon, every firearm is an assault weapon if you use it to assault someone. A car is an assault weapon. A truck is an assault weapon. A hammer is an assault weapon. A knife is an assault. I mean, but these people are just so disconnected from reality. So please call Governor Youngkin and tell him to veto these bills. Nobody needs to go hunting with an AK-47. Well, maybe I don't want to go hunting with an AK-47. Maybe I want to do target practice with an AK-47, and maybe I want to have an AK-47 as a self-defense tool. I mean, I've seen various stories. In fact, there's a story out today about a guy with an AK who stops people. But I saw one story where these 3 people were coming to do a home invasion, and the guy spotted them coming at his house and saw that they were armed. He got his AR and got perched in the right position. And when I forget exactly how the thing unfolded, but there was an exchange of gunfire. And when those guys heard that AR go off, they got in the wind. They decided it wasn't worth it. Now, they might have done that with a pistol, but I think, I don't know whether you've ever fired an AR-15. I mean, the thing sounds like a cannon. And so my guess is they heard that and go, whoa, this guy's armed to the teeth. This is not what we were expecting, because, criminals don't want to get killed. They're not interested in confronting somebody who's prepared to fight back. They're looking for easy targets. It's like the devil. He goes about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Who's he looking for? He's looking for the weak in the herd. And, you just want to shake these people and say, do you realize that criminals do not care about your little stupid rules? In fact, I think they love them. I think criminals love this stuff. I think they say, good, because the more you disarm people, the easier it is for us. It makes our job a lot easier when we know that most people are not going to be able to have firearms at all, and if they have them, they certainly won't be able to outgun us. So when we show up with an Uzi, we're not going to get met with an AR-15 or AK-47 or something like that. I just got, not too long ago, something I've been wanting to get for a while, an M12 shotgun. An M12 shotgun is a semi-automatic shotgun. It's made by Palmetto. They're not that expensive, actually. I was a little bit surprised. But they're magazine fed. So they're semi-auto shotguns. So there's you don't have to pull the slide back. You don't have to do anything. You just fire it, and just like an automatic pistol, it fires off the cartridge, fires off the round, fires off the whatever it's loaded with, the slug or the the pellets, and it ejects the cartridge and loads another one in automatically. Is that an assault weapon? I guess. This stuff is just, it's ridiculous. Call Governor Youngkin. I don't have his number in front of me, but call him and tell him to please veto these gun-grabbing bills and leave us law-abiding citizens alone. Just allow us to do what we're doing. We're not the criminals. We're not the ones who are out there robbing people and shooting people and hurting people. It's the criminals that are doing that. Enforce the laws on the books. I just told you all about an incident that happened right here that touched my own life because I know that the child of the victim, but a guy was killed by a convicted felon who shot him 15 times. He was killed by a convicted felon who's not supposed to have a firearm, but he had one. Go deal with those kinds of situations. And by the way, you killed him for nothing. I mean, just a senseless, ridiculous act. They were having words. The guy came out of the home he was in. He was in somebody else's house. And so he was apparently carrying this weapon because he had it with him. And they were having words, and he called him out. But it was the guy who called him out was unarmed. And the convicted felon just walked out and just shot him dead. Just shot him dead. Didn't even run. The cops came, he said, yeah, I killed him. Yeah, he's going back to jail probably for the rest of his life. Deal with those people. Why they just can't, because folks, it is not about public safety, because if it were about public safety, they wouldn't have supported all this defund the police nonsense and reimagine police and all this. If it were about public safety, they would be wholly supportive of the police. It is about control. It is about wanting to put themselves above the American citizen and to have the American citizen completely dependent upon government and upon them. And notice, the politicians who do this stuff always have the protection they need. Always. They have government provided security, or they provide their own security, and their security people carry firearms. But they don't want the average citizen to have them. So I hope the governor vetoes this nonsense of 5 days. Now, what's a 5-day waiting period supposed to do other than just make your life, make the law-abiding gun owner's life inconvenient? I mean, let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, I forgot this one. They're adding an additional state fee to the purchase of any firearm to defray the cost of criminal background checks. So in addition to making you wait 5 days, they're now going to make you pay for the wait. Yeah, so they're going to add an additional cost to the firearm. So you purchase a firearm in Virginia, it's going to cost you more than it would cost you in another state, because they'll impose another phase something, folks. When the government starts telling you that they want to collect more money from you for some specific purpose, you can just discount that as a great big fat lie. Because they never use money the way they tell you they're going to use it. These leftist politicians see the federal and the state treasuries as their own little piggy banks for rewarding themselves or rewarding their friends and basically doing whatever they want to do. And I mean, they're all over Trump about unconstitutional action, and Trump hasn't taken not a single action that's unconstitutional. Everything Trump has done is within his constitutional authority. I don't even know where some district court judge, forgive me, I'm changing topics a little bit here, but I don't even know where some district court judge gets off telling him that he cannot stop funds that are being spent in a way inconsistent with the policies of his administration. I don't know where some judge even gets off. You're not the executive branch. You don't get to dictate to the executive branch what they can and cannot do. And that's not a constitutional question. It's Trump is stopping the funds for all this transgender nonsense. Well, where in the Constitution does it tell me? Well, nowhere in the Constitution, but sadly, some of our Supreme Court justices are perfectly happy to read that in. But there's nowhere in the Constitution that tells you that I have a responsibility as a taxpayer to pay for somebody's transgender whatever. But apparently a court thinks you do, and thinks the president can't stop that. I tell you, that's why I say, folks, this fight is not over, okay? Praise God for Donald Trump being in office, because Donald Trump is kind of well, he is not kind of, he is the commander-in-chief now of not only the armed forces, but he's kind of the commander-in-chief of the activist forces that are seeking to bring our country back to Judeo-Christian values and constitutional governance, to restore the rule of law. He's trying to do that. Because Democrats, I don't care what they say, they have no interest in the rule of law whatsoever. None. And when they say they do, they're liars. Everything they've done. Look, the open borders itself, I mean, that is an act of lawlessness. And they've done it in order to feather their own political nest. They think this is going to be a long-term solution to their political problem. And the political problem is people finding out just how crazy they are and not voting for them. But they figure you bring in a bunch of illegal aliens and they're beholden to you, and you can control them. I mean, they've already learned to be submissive and obedience from the human traffickers who got them in here. So you bring them in here, and then they get politically trafficked again by Democrats. They get trafficked by the cartels to get here, and then after they get here, they get politically trafficked by the Democrats to be used here for their own political ambitions. So the president has the authority to do what he's doing. Let me tell you, he does. I think the Supreme Court, Bostock versus Clayton County, was an abomination. And the fact that Neil Gorsuch and John Roberts joined in that decision that read gender identity into the word sex in the 1964 Civil Rights Act, Title VII, it's an abomination. So from the point of view of the Supreme Court, I'm not sure where this goes, which, by the way, which brings me to a point. You're going to get a letter. If you're on my email list, you're going to get a letter shortly that lays out our constitutional amendment, which is more complicated than the Life Amendment, more complicated than the Anchor Baby Amendment, because it just is. It's got 4 sections to it. But I hope you read it, because we got to end this madness. We just have to end it and say, look, there are 2 genders, period. And yeah, you can live any kind of way you want to. You can put on, like this stupid guy laughed about yesterday with the beard, this great big old 275-pound, 250, 275-pound man whining about people calling him sir, and he wants to be called ma'am. Yeah, you can live that way. No constitutional amendment stops a person from living however they want to live. They still have freedom of conscience. They can do whatever their stupid heads tell them to do. But what you cannot do is force me to use your pronouns. That's what you cannot do. What you cannot do is force my company to hire you when you decide you're going to stop wearing loafers and you're going to start wearing high heels, and you no longer want to be called Joe. You want to be called Josephine. I'm going to fire you. Until, you go to a company as Josephine and they won't hire you as Josephine, that's fine. They don't have to deal with you coming in as Joe and now suddenly you're Josephine. You can go work for them. And I'm sure there are companies out there run by homosexuals or gender rebellious people who will be happy to hire you. But you're not going to disrupt my workplace with that insanity. And instead of working, people are talking about, did you see Josephine? So be on the lookout for that, because that's what we need to end this madness. We can't count on the Supreme Court to do it. We've only got 2 justices we can count on, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. That's it. That's it. Gorsuch is not, he's not that. John Roberts certainly is not that. And Amy Coney Barrett is not that either. And that's pretty sad. Because with those three, if they were as unified as the leftists are, we could count on good textualist, originalist, constitutional decisions that would bring us back to our foundational principles. I mean, Bostock could have been the case in which the Supreme Court said sex only means gender, and scientifically there are only two. Since the male has the XY and the female has the XX, that's it, that's all, and no government is required to recognize anything else. No government in the United States is required to recognize anything else. They could have ended this, but they didn't. They read that insanity into it. Oh yeah, sex means gender identity and sexual orientation. Well, we know the people writing that legislation wouldn't even recognize the phrases if you used them. But all of a sudden, that's what the words now mean. I mean, to me, Gorsuch, that was a rank betrayal. It really was a rank betrayal of everything that Donald Trump represents and everything that he claimed he represented. And of course, John Roberts has been off the rails for a long time because he's nothing but one of those little paternalistic Republicans who thinks he's doing the Republican Party a favor by even being associated with it. But let's not cloud the issue with principles and truth and all of that. Let's just kind of be pragmatic. This is the way things are going. Yeah, let's just go along with the program. Now that's what you call a zero of a person. You know why? Because any dead fish can flow with the current. It takes a live salmon to swim upstream. We're live salmons, and people like him, they're nothing but dead fish floating with the dead current. Well, I got a lot of things to talk about today. I'm going to try to leave some time to share with you some of my administrative issues and financial appeal to you. But before we get to any of that, Sunny Hostin, she's another one. I mean, the woman is a complete airhead. You know, you wonder about these people, because isn't she a lawyer? I think she is. But you just wonder about these people. How in the world did they get through law school? How in the world did they pass the bar exam? They're just as dumb as rocks. But she says Donald Trump's attacking the Department of Education to create a permanent underclass. Now, you know, you want to say, wait a minute, Sonny, there is already a permanent underclass, and they are a permanent underclass primarily because they lack educational opportunity. Now, Trump's trying to create a permanent. I mean, what is wrong with these people? Poverty. Poverty in the black community, according to all the data right now, is running about 20%. That's below the poverty line, living below the poverty line. And if you've got 40 million, no, is it quite, well, maybe it's not quite 40. Well, we got 33, probably about, probably between 35 and 40 million black folks in the country now. Because here again, that gets so fuzzy because, again, is Barack Obama black? Is Barack Obama white? And I know, but you know, yeah, he identifies as being black, but of course his mother's of European ancestry. His father's literally an African, not an American of African ancestry. His father was an African, and so it gets complicated. But let's just call it 35 million for now. Let's just call it 35 million. Okay. Well, that's a good, 7 million at a minimum, 7 million living below the poverty line. Now, you add to that the working poor, people who are earning more than the poverty line, but they're not really, they're just basically eking out an existence. And you could probably double that number. So you're probably looking at about, I think about 40% of the black community that is really what you would probably call poor, okay? Those are mainly people living in the inner cities of our country, not exclusively, because there are a lot of well-to-do black folks who choose to live in the inner city. I used to know some of them when I was in Boston. It wasn't me. I wasn't one of them. I wasn't about to live in that mess. I wasn't about to put my children through that. The crime and the drugs and the violence and all the craziness. I wouldn't know. No, indeed. Nope. I was going to live in a suburban town regardless, with low crime, and that's what we did. So let's call it 40%, shall we say, poor, if you include the working poor and those living below the poverty line. Well, the ghettos are evidence that those people exist. You ride through the decrepit inner cities and you see the boarded up buildings and the graffiti and the trash and the beat up houses and people standing outside leaning on their cars and guys walking down the street with their pit bulls stretched out in front of them and their do-rags. I mean, it's a whole culture of poverty. Trump's trying to create a permanent underclass. He's inherited that. Barack Obama didn't do anything about it, neither has any other president before him. Since that started with the Great Migration up from the South. No, President Trump, by advancing the cause of school and educational choice, is trying to end the permanent underclass by giving people educational opportunities. Look, case in point. Born into poverty, my foster parents, I went into foster care at 14 months old. My foster father was completely illiterate. I mean, completely illiterate. He made an X. He could not read. He could not write. When he signed a document, he made an X. My foster mother could write a little bit and read a little bit. She could write her name, but she was not what I would call literate. Okay? So, complete illiteracy and functional illiteracy. I grew up in that for 10 years. Everybody around me, there were no college educated people, there were no professionals, there were no people with money, there were some businesses not too far from us. There were some Jewish businesses right around the corner on 3rd Street, but I didn't interact with those people. I knew them. We'd go into their stores or something, but other than that, I didn't really know them. And then my father took me out of foster care at the age of 10 years old. I lived with him. But he didn't own a home. He lived in an apartment. I lived in 3 apartments with my father. When I moved in with him, we were on the 1st floor of an apartment building. We moved to the 2nd floor of that apartment building later on. And then we moved to the back of a barbershop. And they were all in the same block. And that was how I lived from the age of 10 to when I joined the Marine Corps at, I don't know whether it was 18 or 19 when I joined the Marine Corps. No, I was 18 when I joined the Marine Corps. I finished my first year of college because I started school early. I started school when I was 5. Just the way my birthday fell in the system and all that. But my father had no money. He was a 3rd-class welder at Sunship Building and Dry Dock Company. I mean, we eked out an existence, and I didn't feel like we never struggled for food. I never felt like there was nothing to eat, and I had decent clothes to wear. But we lived in the back of a barbershop. So we had the back behind the barbershop, and then we had the 2nd floor. That was our bedrooms were on the 2nd floor over the barbershop. So we're sitting in our living room while the barbershop is open. You can hear people in there talking in the barbershop. I joined the Marine Corps, go back to college, graduate from college summa cum laude, go on to Harvard Law School, pass the bar exam, pass 2 bar exams, Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, go on to practice law for about 15 years. And I come from, I would have to call it abject poverty, because I remember, particularly in foster care, There was a Madeline supermarket. It was on the corner of 3rd and Pennell Street in Chester, Pennsylvania. If any Chesterites from that era, you might know what I'm talking about, because Madeline's supermarket was on the corner of 3rd and Pennell Street, and Miss Madeline ran a tab for my foster parents, and I'd go in there. They would send me up there sometimes to get something, and sometimes Miss Madeline would say, well, now you tell your mother she needs to come see me because the bill is getting high, and I need a payment on the bill. They were basically running a supermarket tab because they didn't have money to pay for groceries. You had to wait until payday. And she worked as a house cleaner for a florist shop that was about 3 blocks away. And of course, he worked as a sandblaster on 3rd shift. So he went to work about 3 o'clock and came back about 10 or 11 o'clock. But this is America. That was not the limit of my potential. I went on to accomplish things, and I'm still, thank God, alive, well, healthy, and accomplishing things. That's what happens in America. But look, education was what opened the doors for me. I got a decent education in high school. I was ready for college when I got there. I did well in college. I went on to law school. So if you're denying people educational opportunity, you're denying them the ability to break out of the permanent underclass that Sonny Hostin thinks Donald Trump is trying to create. And you just think, are you that brainwashed, or are you that stupid, or is it a combination of both? At any rate, I've got an Apple Watch. I don't wear it most of the time, but I've got a little band problem with my usual watch. And I don't like these things because you got to hit them to get the time. And they're always making noises and buzzing and all that. At any rate, so because I hate looking at my watch when I'm on with you, I probably need to put a clock. Actually, that's what I need to do. I used to have a clock right here, and I moved it. So I'm going to probably get another one and put it there so that I don't ever have to look down like that and look at my watch and see what time it is. And you're probably thinking, not that it matters, because you talk as long as you want. So what's the difference? Okay, enough on that. Trump has declared Trump is declaring war on these cartels. He's declared these cartels terrorist organizations. God bless him. Good, because that's exactly what needs to happen. These are wicked, evil organizations, and they need to be stopped. And they've got so much money that Mexico is not about to stop them. There's too much money flowing to the politicians there, to the police there. And of course, what's the saying? Basically, silver or bullets. There's the Spanish expression for it. But that's what it basically means. Silver or bullets. So either you take the silver or you get the bullet. I mean, it's going to take the might of the United States government to put these people back on their heels, because they've just got money coming out of their ears, and they don't mind using it, and they are absolutely sold out to the devil, completely violent, and they'll scare the daylights out of anybody who dares to cross them. And they need somebody like Donald Trump, who's not afraid of them. And they need the United States government, because we're certainly not afraid of them. Our country's not afraid of these idiots. We're not afraid of their evil. We got something good for them. Did you all see the new ad that apparently has been approved, where this guy is lifting weights, and he lifts up the weight stand that the weights rest on and walks with that. And he says at the end of the process, he says, being stronger makes you hard to kill. And it's a U.S. Army ad. I said, yes, I'll take that every day and twice on Sunday over some idiot in a drag queen outfit telling people that you ought to join the military and you can look like an idiot like me. They're really, I run out of words to express just how crazy and stupid these people are. I really do. Because it's not like we're having rational policy differences and discussions. No, you've got one side that has rational, logical, factual approaches to things that line up with reality. And you got the other side in la la land telling you that you're crazy for not buying it and that you should be drinking the Kool-Aid too, just like they are. And there's something wrong with you if you don't. How can you have a rational discussion with people like that? How can you have a rational discussion with somebody who thinks that putting on a drag queen outfit and telling America's young people, come join the Navy, you can be a drag queen. And you tell them, that's crazy. And they say, oh, no, there's something wrong with you. You're a bigot. You're a hater. Look, let me say this. I really believe the Lord put this on my heart to say. And I'm glad it's come back to me because I was thinking about it before I started the program. Our military is designed to kill people and break things. Now that's what we're asking people to do. If we are ever in a situation where we must fight for our liberty, fight for our survival, we expect our military men, particularly, because I'm not expecting women to go into combat, although I don't deny a woman who's got the qualifications. If she meets the same qualifications as a man, I don't deny her that right. I don't like it, but I don't think it'd be right to say, well, if you're a woman who's capable as a man and you meet the same standards as a man, I can't see it. I don't want to be drafting women into combat, that's for sure, and just assuming that women can deal with the pressures of combat. Men have a hard enough time dealing with the pressures of combat and the physical rigor that combat demands. But we're asking these men to go kill people in our behalf. And you do an ad with a drag queen? I mean, what are you going to do? Sprinkle rainbow dust on them? On the enemy? I mean, is that, you're going to dance them to death? I mean, it just, folks, you can't, it's hard to talk about this stuff because it is so insane. But like I said, thank God for Donald Trump, who believes in reality. Okay. Wow. I really should stop, but let me get a couple of other things here. Hollywood is all worked up about Donald Trump. And one Hollywood director, Todd Haynes, I don't know who the guy is, he said, but we're in a crisis. We're in a crisis right now. We don't know what the Trump administration is doing. Now my thought is, how are you in a crisis? You are making movies. And the only crisis, it seems to you, is whether you're making movies that people want to see. And if you aren't, you're in a crisis because you're not going to make any money. And if you are, you're fine because people want to go see your movies. What does Donald Trump have to do with that? But it just goes to show, doesn't it, the sort of nasty symbiosis, the symbiotic relationship between these leftist politicians in Hollywood. They feed off of each other. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this U.S. aid money didn't go to feather their nests. I mean, how's Donald Trump put Hollywood in a crisis? Of course, he's replaced the chairman of the Kennedy Center, put Rick Grinnell as chairman of the Kennedy Center, Rickenell is openly homosexual, and you all know my views about that. I don't care whether you're conservative or liberal. Homosexuality is wrong, period. And I wouldn't be appointing homosexuals if I were president. I just wouldn't. I know. But that would be discriminatory. Yeah, well, you know, I just don't think it pleases God. Every revival in the Old Covenant, and I know we're not in the Old Covenant, but the Old Covenant is still instructive. It's leading us to Christ. Every revival in the Old Covenant, the kings who helped lead those revivals, they banished the perverted persons. You know what the perverted persons were? The sodomites, the homosexuals. Now, of course, we're not going to banish people from our country, but I don't support homosexuality. I don't support Hinduism. I don't support Buddhism. I don't support people putting people in authority who I think are of the wrong spirit. That's just me. But nevertheless, Rickenell is working for Donald Trump, and I do believe the president has the right to appoint whoever he wants, even if I don't agree with it. And I don't have anything personally against Rick Grenell, by the way. I mean, he seems like a perfectly nice guy. But I do have something against homosexuality because the Bible has something against it. But nevertheless, they are apoplectic because he's taking over the Kennedy Center. Because apparently the Kennedy Center has been promoting all this sexual craziness too, all this sexual depravity and degeneracy. Oh, they've done a lot of drag queen stuff and all this gender garbage. And, you know, I mean, this is what they're into. This is what the depraved mind is attracted to. They're attracted to all this stuff. Here again, I don't know what Rick Grenell is going to do. I assume he's got a different approach to these kinds of things because he's conservative, even though he does happen to be homosexual. And so we'll see. But again, that's a government institution. The president has the right to control the agenda of that institution. What does it have to do with Hollywood? I mean, what are they all shaking up about? I think they're shaken up because they're confirmed leftists, and Donald Trump is interfering with their little Marxist vision for the world, and they need to get it. They need to go back to trying to figure out how to do entertainment instead of how to change children's agenda, children's gender. Go back to doing entertainment. How about that? That is a novel idea. And here's another one. Reuters. Oh, and by the way, speaking of the Kennedy Center, this actress, Issa Rae, I guess her name is. Now, I've never heard of this woman. Well, this goes to show how out of touch I am with all this pop culture nonsense. But she's quit the Kennedy Center, and a number of others have because of the way Trump is. And you know what I say? Goodbye. Good riddance. Thanks for saving President Trump the trouble of firing you. Glad you're gone. See ya, and wouldn't want to be you. So, you know, good, great. I'm glad they're quitting. I'll tell you what, John Kennedy would probably turn over in his grave. I hope John Kennedy's in heaven. I can't attest to that based on anything I knew about him or know about him. But forgive. It's just a metaphor, obviously, because nobody's turning over in their grave because the only thing in the grave is the body, and the spirit is going back to the God who gave it for judgment. But Kennedy was not like this. In fact, Kennedy was quite the opposite because John Kennedy liked females. Not to put too fine a point on it, he liked women, as we all know too well. In spite of all his back problems and his Hodgkin's disease, he apparently had no lack of interest in the ladies. So, forgive me, but I can't believe he would be into all this garbage. And the Kennedy Center is named after him. And finally, and I think I'll stop with this. Jamie Raskin. Well, one more thing. What's my? Okay, yeah, I'm just on the cusp. Jamie Raskin, this idiot congressman, is calling the GOP the corruption party. Now again, he's calling the Republican Party the corruption party, and these people had a president who sold pretty much everything but the kitchen sink to anybody who would buy it in order to make money for his family. They've got a senator who's now in jail, federal prison. I think he's doing 7 years, if I'm not mistaken, in federal prison for corruption. I mean, he's collecting gold bars, you know, and he's just collecting the money hand over fist. And we found out that the federal government I didn't mention this story yet, but had been giving money to Politico, giving money. Now we found out they're giving money to Reuters. Oh, but that's not, the Reuters is saying, oh, but that's not the journalistic arm of our organization. Right. And they're working with all the big tech companies to censor us and to not allow us to say things that we think need to be said and need to be heard. But the GOP is corrupt. I mean, these people have got chutzpah. They really do. You know, they really are. They are the true fascists and the true communists, because, you know, fascism and communism are just really two sides of the same coin. People like to make us. Mussolini coined the term fascism, and Mussolini was a communist. And he coined the term fascism because basically fascism is nothing really but communism with hyper-nationalism. Because instead of wanting a worldwide communist dictatorship, he came up with the idea, no, it should be about Italy controlling the world. And then, of course, partnering with Hitler, it should be about Germany and Italy controlling the world. So it's just communism. It's just warmed over communism. They own everything. They control. The government owns everything. The government controls everything. The government controls everybody. It's the same thing. These people are fascists and communists. And because, you know, one of the things that keys of fascists and communists is there is no truth. And so they can say anything about anything in order to get the results that they're looking for. And it doesn't matter as long as it advances their agenda. I can't come on this program as a Christian and lie to you because I think it will help my agenda. Because the Bible, in fact, I think I just read it this morning. The Bible says, oh no, actually it's talking about the righteous man. The righteous man hates lies. God hates lies. Proverbs chapter 6. God hates a proud look, a lying tongue. We're not allowed to lie in order to advance our cause. But communists and fascists, they don't care. What difference does it matter? What difference does it make? As long as it's advancing what they want to do, to say anything. And here's Jamie Raskin talking about GOP as the corruption party. And the Democrat Party is the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the party of Jim Crow segregation, the party of what we're finding out now, which we're going to find out more, folks. It's going to shock all of us, although it shouldn't. The party of government corruption, using government as their own little piggy bank and personal treasury to reward their friends, to punish their enemies, and to enrich themselves. And he's got the nerve to point. I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect. I know that. I know better than that. Wherever you find human beings, you're going to find problems. But at least the Republican Party has principles based upon truth that, if adhered to, would put it in a far better position to govern as the righteous in America, as opposed to the Democrats, which are really the wicked. It's laughable. Finally, Health and Human Services squandered $22 billion on migrants, vehicles, home loans, things. They call them migrants. We just call them illegal aliens, invaders. Now, I'm going to end with this, folks. As a black conservative, I've confronted a lot of arguments about, well, you know, America's racism and America does this. Well, one of the things I used to hear a lot coming out of the black community, particularly black activists and people who are more on the left-wing side, they would say this to me. You know, when these foreigners come in, the government gives them all kinds of goodies, but they don't give anything to us. And I would say, look, the government's not giving all kinds of goodies to foreigners. And all that is an excuse for not taking responsibility for your own life. And so you're saying, I want some goodies. And you're going to point the finger at somebody else and say, well, they're getting the goodies. Why aren't I getting the goodies? I want to apologize. Because apparently I stand corrected. Because in this case in particular, now this was years ago that people were saying this, but there's probably many are saying it today. They're absolutely right. The government has been giving goodies to foreigners while ignoring the interests of the American people. $22 billion. Can you imagine buying cars for illegal aliens, giving home loans so that illegal aliens, I mean, it's enough to make you want to scream. And I realized, you know, I wasn't thinking probably ideologically about what the left does with our government money, but you know, they were probably right then. Because the left will spend money to do whatever they think they need to do in order to enhance their own power and their own control and their own political fortunes. So I apologize. There was probably something to what they said. I don't apologize for the part about, look, I don't care what the government's doing for anybody else. That doesn't absolve me of the responsibility to take care of myself. But they probably had a point. Because that's what the Biden administration was doing. Giving goodies to foreigners who had no business being here. And I'm not just talking about keeping people from starving. You're financing people to buy homes. You're giving people cars. I mean, forget about cell phones and hotel rooms. Thank God for Donald Trump. Okay, well, look, I've gone way over my time. I would just ask you all, please pray for us. Pray for the resources to do all the things that God has for us to do. I am believing God for my first $1 million donor. Pray that the Lord will put me in the path of that person or those persons because there are a number of things that we really do need. I'm going to come up with a plan, a 3-year plan to put these things in place, to put an executive director in place. Somebody suggested maybe instead of focusing on direct mail, I need to be focusing on enhancing our digital footprint, investing more to make sure that what we're doing is going out. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that because I think direct mail is probably dying over the next 10 to 20 years as older people who focus on it and use it die out, and younger people who don't pay any attention to paper mail and do everything digitally. So probably some wisdom to that. I've got to have a communications director to get all this stuff out. I've got to have a development director to help raise the funds that we need, who's spending full time thinking about nothing but where to find the money to do the things that God has called us to do. I need I said development director, an executive director, a communications director. I really do need a field director. I'm putting that on hold, but I really do need, I've got a field director, forgive me, I shouldn't say it that way. I've got a field director, but he can't give his full time to that. And I really do need the ability to make somebody, him, Pastor Marlon Sharp, or somebody else, and maybe give him other responsibilities. He helps me in a variety of different ways, so I don't mean in any way to denigrate his service. It is outstanding. But he can't really do the job of field director as effectively as he could if that were all he was doing. And I need somebody for whom that is all that they are doing. But I'm putting that on hold right now. We've only got 2 chapters. I want to have chapters all over the country, but it takes money to do that. I mean, you take TPA, Turning Point USA, they've hired regional directors all over the country who are then responsible for taking care of their local or state or whatever they are, Turning Point USA organizations. That's because they've got millions upon millions of dollars to do this stuff with. I don't mean to take anything away from Charlie Kirk, but I tell you what, you give me millions of dollars, I'll do some things I can't do right now. I can assure you. So pray for us that those resources will come to pass and we'll have what we need to do, what we need to do. Listen, God bless you. I've gone way over, but I hope all of you have enjoyed it. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you. By the way, I'll be at church on Sunday. Come on by, 943 Canal Drive in Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm still preaching on the command to disciple. And I'm going to be, as I talked about the methods of discipleship, I'm going to be continuing to talk about the methods of discipleship. Oh my goodness. If you haven't listened to any of those messages or watched any, please do. Believe me, if you are a serious Christian who wants to grow in the Lord, these messages will help you. They will bless you. They will grow you. They will challenge you. And if you want to be in person, that's where we'll be, 11 a.m., 943 Canal Drive. And we'll start live streaming about 11:15. In the meantime, you all know what to do. Oh, and for standamerica.us is the website to go to find out more about our petitions, all kinds of stuff. Okay, enough. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.